Welcome back, you guys. This is a special episode of Candidly with Coffee in collaboration with Off Topic, which is my unfiltered, uncensored show on Patreon that I usually do with Mike, but I have a special guest that I brought back to the show. I promised you guys I was going to bring her back. Her name is Ofelia, and she joined us on episode 511. Where we dove into her life and addiction. And so I wanted to bring her back on the show because we have so much more to talk about. But before we get into that, I want to let you guys know that this is a little bit of a teaser. Only half of the episode is actually going to reside here on YouTube. And if you want to go deeper and more intimate, you can head over to Patreon, which will be linked down in the description. But before we go any further, let's just go ahead and bring Ofelia officially into the show.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for doing this again.
No, thank you for having me. It was super fun, and I loved all the feedback that we got, and it was pretty funny to hear some of the more important questions, like, how did you meet your husband, and how did you lose weight?
Yeah.
I'm like, no, don't get that out of it.
Yeah, exactly.
It was pretty funny. That was cute.
Yeah, that's like, no, that's not what we're talking about. We didn't even get into that stuff. So, I had a lot of people reach out to me and just said that conversation was so resonated with them so much.
That's awesome.
Especially because you talked about how you took that drink of vodka that time and you felt that switch.
Yeah.
I think that, for one, I think it resonated with many, but for two, it scared a lot of people.
Yeah, and again, just to reiterate, it's asking yourself why, right? It really is. It's like if you find yourself fighting all the time with someone that you love, or you're not proud of the behavior that you had from the drinking, then, I would just say, again, ask yourself, why do you do it? And right now, I've been, sober for quite a while now. And, now it's like, I want to go for this long and this long. And I find myself finding these little milestones that are just more personal now.
Yeah.
And I'm sleeping better, and there's just so many positives. And the more you just dig into yourself, I just don't even want it anymore, which is kind of cool. I mean, and again,
I love that. I love to ask yourself why. That's we got a nugget out of this conversation, because you can apply that to so many different things.
So many. Food, fitness, why don't I work out? Why don't I take that extra step? And then, or, why am I using food as a way to, be happy? Right. I'm an emotional eater. I know that about myself. So what do? I try to plan a lot of healthy meals that if I'm stressed out, I know I'm going to grab something healthy and not something, else.
Yeah. So have you always identified as an emotional eater, or is that kind of come with?
I think it started as a young adult, for sure. Like my mom was so strict that I knew I had to, find a way to be. Yeah, I guess the answer is yes. Yeah. When I was married, I found myself eating a lot more, and then that's when I became a plus size model. So there was always these really odd parallels in my life of some blessing and using the negative for a blessing.
Right.
So eating was an emotional behavior, and I did it, but then it also blessed me with a plus size modeling career, which is so odd,
That's so interesting.
Yeah, it's so funny how you can sometimes use the tribulations and the turmoils of your life, but then they can also be the reason you're successful, and that, I suppose, can kind of go into our topic, which is, I became a successful spa owner.
Yeah.
O-Spa was driven by wanting to be successful so that I could support myself and my children without the help of my ex-husband.
Right, which that's what I definitely want to get into that, because, that is I can definitely resonate with this conversation a lot, having encountered narcissism in my life. Let's go back to how did you guys meet, and how long were you married?
So we were high school sweethearts. Yeah. And we met really young, and it was during a time when we were both emotionally broken. My mother was diagnosed with early dementia, and depression. And so in high school, she kind of checked out, you know, and my father was, and here's a big difference. He showed narcissistic behavior. He didn't have narcissistic disorder. And I think we need to, you know, definitely tap into the difference there.
Yes, I definitely want to get into that.
Yeah, and I did a lot of my own research on this subject. So we were high school sweethearts, and he showed me this love and attention that I wasn't getting at home as a teenager. And he was super hot, and you know, there was all these little things, and we gravitated towards each other, and we were there for each other during a moment of brokenness. And I ended up getting pregnant. You know, I had a modeling situation going on as like a 17, something like that. And then I got pregnant. And then I turned 18. And then it was the right thing to do is get married, you know?
Yeah.
You know, you're going to have a baby. And it was coming from his parents and my parents.
Shoot.
And you're young and broken and trying to navigate, you know, yourself as a young adult, and you don't have the tools. You really don't. My father, again, was narcissistic behavior. So he had my mother in a position where she was the stay-at-home mom and came from Mexico, gave up her career as a model and a nurse to be a stay-at-home mom. And so there she was in a position not able to, I don't know, assert herself, if you will.
Right, because your dad's narcissistic tendencies were that of control?
You know, some would call it machismo.
Oh, okay.
Right? You know?
Latino. Yeah.
You know, in Argentina, it's a big joke because, you know, Argentines can be very pompous and charismatic, and they consider themselves the best Latin country, you know, out of all the Latin countries.
Yes, they do. Yes.
And this is very normal and very stereotypical. Kind of like the French consider themselves the best, you know, European country.
Yeah.
So you put my husband and I together. Oh boy. No, I'm just kidding.
Goodness. Firecracker.
We are firecrackers. So there's that kind of mentality. So anyway,
your dad's machismo. So he was kind of controlling of your mom. So she was stay at home, kind of under his spell.
And it was his way. So that dominated a lot of my personality too, because I can resonate more with the Argentine side than the Mexican side,
right?
Which is really interesting.
Yeah,
that was very prominent in my home.
So they pushed you into marriage at 18.
Yep.
And how was that? Like,
well, it was kind of like you're in shock, right? I knew that I was going to have my baby. And in many ways, she was not many ways, she was my blessing at a very young age. She was God's gift to me for sure, because I was going down a path of modeling and addiction, and I wasn't ready for that lifestyle. I don't think. I think had I moved to LA, I would have taken maybe a bad road.
Right.
You know, because cocaine was introduced to me through modeling, actually.
Oh, wow.
It was, you know, the agent was like, hey, you know, you have the height, you have this, you have that, but, you know, you need to lose a little bit of weight. And I was like, oh, okay, you know, and so there it goes again.
Yeah.
Here you have my mother talking about weight issues as a young child and being on a strict diet from a very young age. And then getting into this modeling career where they're telling you have to be thinner.
Yeah.
And I was like, okay. And then I told another model, and it was very simple. It was, oh, this is what you do. So I wasn't using cocaine as an addiction. Oh, no, I'm not an addict, you know?
Right, no.
But I was doing it because it was a way to control my appetite. Like, how screwed up is that? And I thought that was normal. you know?
Exactly.
It was like, because it's not that I didn't know it was wrong. It was the fact, again, of denial, thinking that you're doing it for a different purpose, so therefore it's okay.
Right.
Right?
Oh, exactly. Oh, I tried crank in high school to lose weight.
Oh, yeah.
I literally,
that's a scary one, too.
I didn't even, I was like freaked out about putting it up my nose. So I crushed it up and put it in a Diet Coke. And for the first time in my life.
Sorry.
No, it's okay. It's funny. For the first time in my entire life, I felt a sense of satiety.
Okay.
Because I was always overfed as a child. And so I completely developed a resistance to satiety cues to feel full. So I should be 400 pounds.
Okay.
Because of that. But I did it for that. So I never thought of myself as even a drug user or anything.
Right.
I'm just like, I'm just doing this to lose weight. I did it for a short period of time, but I liked sleep, and it didn't allow me to sleep.
That's
so
right.
I couldn't continue. But did you continue to do it for a while? And did it help you with your weight?
It did, but then I got pregnant. And so as soon as I got pregnant, it was all around the same.
You know what? Your daughter saved you then.
Absolutely. Oh my God, I say it all the time. Had I not gotten pregnant, I don't even know what my life would be. Because she was God's gift.
Yeah, for sure you ended up with addiction issues later in life. But imagine if you woke up that addiction beast at that time.
And I've seen these young girls, or even the Justin Biebers, or the, all of these kids that do become successful too early in life, and they're not prepared to handle it. That scares me,
Scary.
And I don't regret anything. I really do try to come from a place of not regretting how I was raised, who I was raised by, who I married, and how long it took me to get out of that. I try to really not go back and regret any of it, because I do believe that we go through things to get us to where we are. And I also believe that you can flip around any situation and make it a learning lesson.
I agree.
Yeah.
I agree completely.
So even though it was 23 years of a bad marriage, it didn't seem like it. Before you know it, now I'm married with 2 kids, and I'm in survival mode now. I am there to compensate and be a good mother, and at the time a good father too, unfortunately. Yeah.
So tell me about your relationship early on, like through when the kids were little, and what were those narcissistic tendencies?
Always red flags.
Yeah.
There was always the red flags, and that's the part that's tough to look back on, because it's not like I didn't know.
Right.
The first time he hit me, I was holding my daughter, and she was only 6 months old.
Oh my
and
gosh.
He was beating me in the back of the head, and my ex-mother-in-law grabbed him. The cops were called. I mean, it was a fiasco. And somehow, through narcissism disorder and being controlled by narcissistic disorder, a person who has narcissistic disorder, you are in the rat race and circle, and it just goes around and around and around, and you don't know how to jump off.
It's so hard.
It is hard when you don't have the tools. And so I really, when you asked me to do this podcast on narcissism, and I always knew my story would be told. I didn't know when. So leading up to this, it's interesting. I had some nightmares. I had to pray myself through them, and no one better than to do it with you. I feel really comfortable with you, and so I thank you for that.
Oh, thank you.
And I knew it'd be told. I knew I was going to be used on a platform to help women in some way, form, or fashion in the future. I didn't know when, and the time is now to let women know and give them the tools.
You're going to be helping. You are. You're going to be helping so many people, because so many people are suffering in silence, and they're in that. They're on that wheel, and they don't know how to get off. Yeah.
Yesterday I was sharing with 2 good friends who have been my mentors in life. We talked about mentors on our last podcast, and one of them didn't know, because it was a secret. I knew how to keep it a secret. On the outside, everything's a facade. Everyone's looking at me going, she's happily married. Nobody knew. I would say there was a handful of people. Maybe. It was my children, for sure, and 2 close friends, my father even. But even with my father, with his narcissistic behavior, he didn't really believe it until he saw it.
Right.
And there was a moment where he said to me, and I was in the circle, and he said, gosh, this man is going to end up alone, someday if he doesn't change. And I remember going like, stop, he'll change. I still was grasping on this hope that he would change someday.
Did you feel like you were on like a roller coaster ride almost?
Always.
Like highs and lows? Because it's not just lows. It's not like you're constantly abused. Don't you feel like you are beat down physically and mentally just to get lifted back up.
Yeah, absolutely. All I wanted was the perfect little happy family.
Right.
I wanted him to show up at my daughter's soccer games. I wanted him to show up at my son's baseball games. I wanted him to show up to the grading process at school, the things that are very normal.
Right.
I just wanted him to show up. It wasn't even like, I wasn't even trying to ask him to, like, you know, do anything extra. It was like, I couldn't even ask him for anything, to be quite honest with you, because I knew the answer was no. I knew that he was not willing to participate, you know, and there's, you know, there's the red flags, right? Going back to the red flags and stuff like that. Like early on, it was like little things like not opening the door. And I know that could sound very chivalrous, but I come from a very chivalrous background with my father, very charismatic, very, and that, you know, very, you know, always paid the bill, always did this, always did that, very respectful. And so I married the complete opposite.
Wow.
They could not be more opposite. It was pretty like sad in a way, because my father always longed to have this relationship with his son-in-law, and he was never going to get that from my ex ever.
Right.
He was very difficult to get along with, and if he did become close to someone, he would sabotage the relationship. I was the one who enabled. Clearly, I was the enabler, and that was the thing. Is like, instead of learning how to walk away early on, I didn't. I enabled because I wanted so badly to have the perfect
Describe
family.
a cycle of like one of the cycles of abuse. So, for example, like from conflict to like resolution to another conflict. Like how did that go?
Yeah, it was always, you know, I can think of the middle and the end a lot more than the early times, because the early times I was so invested in the kids and he was working a lot. So I was always very busy with them, right? So then in the middle, I would call it, in the middle stages, I had the career going and everything, but it always felt like the calm before the storm, or the, how does that go? Yeah, the calm before the storm. So I could feel like everything was like smooth. And when I mean smooth, I wasn't happy. I was never really happy. Okay. That was very clear. I wasn't happy. Like there was never a sense of like, you know, what you would consider a normal relationship where you get to talk about your day or anything like that. No. If anything, I'd come home and I would be like, God, I wonder what mood he's going to be in. I'd have to ask myself that question. God, I hope he's in a good mood. So there was always that. There was the anxiety of the children knowing he was going to come home, and I sensed the early anxiety in my children, like dad's on his way home. Everybody would stop what they're doing and start cleaning the house.
Oh my gosh, yeah.
And I remember sitting back one time and going, like, I could just see the fear in my daughter's face, my oldest, and she would just start cleaning. And she, you know, they saw the abuse happen. They had to experience their own abuse, unfortunately, and we always thought we were protecting the little one when we felt the storm coming, and then the storm would come. And when the storm came, it was physical, mental, you know. I protected him when at the very young age after the first abuse happened, and we actually went to court, and I sat in the back thinking, this is wrong. I am sitting here. They got a lawyer. He's being protected, and here I am supporting him in court, and the whole time I'm thinking, I felt like a zombie.
Wow.
I felt like a zombie, like I'm going through the motions, and I knew it was wrong. And the lawyer is literally saying, look, and here's his wife supporting him. So he's done the work, and he did. He had to go to anger management classes. He had to do all this stuff. So he learned very early how to not leave bruises.
Wow.
So there's no bruises, but there was a lot of other stuff. So I went through that cycle.
Was he a drinker?
Yeah. So when he drank, it was bad. It was Jekyll and Hyde. He was the life of the party. But then when when people would leave, we were scared. Oh, wow. Yeah, we were scared. We were literally like, you know, unfortunately it was it was pretty bad. We can talk about that later.
Yeah, that's crazy.
Yeah. And as we started to get to the end, I realized through a mutual friend of ours, and she would see me cry a lot, and I opened up to her. And she goes, I see you cry a lot. I know you're not happy. She was very intuitive. Mm-hmm. And I go, yeah. And then she goes, and I opened up to her, and she says, well, are you willing to accept this behavior for the rest of your life? And that was a big question. Nobody had ever asked me that before.
Wow.
And I went, hell no. At that moment, I was like, no, actually, no. I don't want to live like this for the rest of my life. I clearly don't. Like, I know there's more, there's better. I know, not man-wise, but I mean, better life for me.
Right.
And
but when you're so in the thick of it, sometimes it's hard to picture it.
Oh, yeah. And at this point, I already had the successful business.
Right.
So, and what drove me to have a successful business was because he would lie. He would lie to me and say, you can't make it on your own. You can't do this. You're never. And then there was the threats. Clearly, the threats were the worst. You're not going to leave me. I'll kill you.
Wow.
And when you love someone so much, you believe them.
Yeah. So it was like a Stockholm syndrome kind of thing, though? Because, like, how did you feel?
Remind me of what Stockholm is.
Like, Stockholm is like when a kidnapped person falls in love with the kidnapper. Because even if they treat them so bad, then this is what happens in narcissistic relationships a lot. They treat you so bad that when they treat you a little okay, you think, oh my God, they love me. And you feel like, okay, it's better again. That's how my mom was with my dad. It was like he treated her like shit. So when he gave her a little bit, she felt like, whoa, okay, it's good.
Yeah, and you hold on to that good.
Yes.
And you think that they're capable of being good all the time, but they're not.
Right. You think this time might be different.
This time might be different. Yeah, it was the broken promises, even when it came to marriage counseling,
right.
I was like, we need to go. And leading up to leaving him, it took years. I was already checked out. So I was already clearly out of love, and now I'm planning how to leave him, because the day that I served him the restraining order was gut-wrenching for not only me, but for my family. It was so hard.
Yeah.
It took everything, but it wasn't just me.
Yeah.
This is the thing, is I want women to know you can't do it alone. Yeah. It's almost like sobriety for some people. Mm-hmm. If you don't have a meeting or a friend or a partner who's supporting you, sobriety, they say 99% the success of doing it on your own by yourself is 99% failure.
Wow.
You can't. You need support because you're an addict or an addiction is overruling you. You're powerless. Therefore, you need support. You need a village. Same thing with abusive relationships. And mine was with a narcissist. Yeah. So in abusive relationships, you can't leave alone. Sometimes, I mean, I don't know if anyone's seen that movie Enough.
Yeah.
Yes. Right, with Jennifer Lopez.
Yeah, I've seen that.
And then, there's that one, and where she starts taking, and so even though she did it on her own, she still had a team, right?
Oh, yeah.
She had a plan.
Oh, yeah, she did.
Yeah. So same thing with the one with Julia Roberts. I could relate to these movies.
I love that. Yeah.
These were me. Mm-hmm. It was me. I had to plan, unfortunately.
And that was a long plan.
It was a long plan. I tried 3 different times to leave, and then somehow I get sucked back in.
How did you get sucked back in? Like, really try to think, like, specifically how, after, like, making the move, and describe one of the times. Like, so you left by what? Like, moving out?
He made me, I kicked him out one time. He cheated on me. And then I kicked him out, and then he used something to make me feel sorry for him. So he tried to use suicide as a way, like, I just have to come home, like, and then you don't even know what to do. You're like numb because you're so used to the gaslighting, right?
Yeah.
The gaslighting is huge. I mean, that's another one. It's like you start thinking you're crazy. You're the crazy one.
Absolutely.
Because you start to go like, gosh, did I say that? Or is that for real? Like, did that would really happen? I swear I told him 3 times that we were going out on Friday with so-and-so.
That's that that is that true narcissistic disorder, because it makes everybody around them feel crazy.
Yeah. And he would do it to, the people closest to us. And you never told me, but I was always the one, like you never told me, and vacations were always ruined. I can't think of one successful vacation. So I'm a world traveler. I was raised that way. I loved traveling. And so, of course, I wanted to include him on the family vacations. But guess what? There was some vacations that I started to take without him because I was like, I don't know how to explain it. He ruined every single one, like to the point where I thought he'd go to jail and I'd try to protect him. Or, the next day, you don't want to ruin the rest of the days that you have in Newport Beach at the beautiful hotel.
Right.
So here I am cleaning up the mess that he made.
Yes. Yeah. And so it's like you're always doing that.
Yeah.
You're always kind of, because well, if it wasn't for this, then this would be the time I left him. But we have a vacation, but we have to finish it. It's always like that.
Yeah, and he always had a way of they throw it back on you. Well, had you not done that, if you would have just been ready on time, or if and then it becomes my fault, and I'm like thinking it's my fault, and then you start to feel bad for yourself. Like, why can't I fix this? Why am I a bad person? Like, what did I do? So there's the whole feel sorry for yourself and blaming yourself for this unsuccessful situation. I remember even I hate to say this, but even the police department, I called the cops a few times and they showed up. And guess what? He would just pretend like he was sitting there playing the video games, and then the cops would go, well, he's clearly been drinking. You haven't. You should leave. Wow. So now I'm the one leaving the house, and I didn't do anything. And then I'm like, well, forget that. Stop calling the cops. So I stopped relying on the cops, and I would leave. I'd sleep in my car until he would fall asleep, and then I could come home because I knew he was gonna bother me if he was awake, so I'd have to sleep it off. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, it was intense, and yeah, I mean, I could start crying about it, but I somehow persuaded him to agree to go to marriage counseling because I thought that would fix it. And I'm like, so at this point, this is towards the end. It felt like always like the calm before the storm. So those were the red flags. Somehow he'd suck me back in. And then I started to plan. So the planning part can sound mischievous and conniving.
Just smart.
Yeah.
You have to, but it's almost scary too.
It is scary. When someone said to me, do you have a bag packed? And I'm all,
wow.
Huh? Like, I really looked at her like, what do you mean? And she was someone who was in charge of my church, a leader in church. And her mother was experienced with this. And so she grew up knowing the signs. And so I opened up to her. So she says, do you have a bag packed and money in that bag? And I go, no, never thought about that. And then she goes, well, I want you to. And I go, it's not that bad, is it?
Wow.
And so when you start to go, it's not that bad, is it? But you have other people telling you.
Right.
But you're still ignoring it. That's a red flag for yourself. Yeah. Because sometimes it does take other people. And then sometimes it also, we are blind to it. So
of course,
it can take someone to really sit you down and go, I want to talk to you about something, and
then you might be mad at that person for a little bit.
Yeah. It's true.
They're interfering. They get, it's tough to be that person, to do that. Now, I'm sure that even having gone through it, coming out of it, is only now do you really have the clarity of what had happened. Because when you're in it,
Right.
you're in this like fog and you know, you're not even as clear as how badly things were until you're out of it.
And completely. And even, you know, talking about it, this is the first time I publicly talked about it. You're not really out of it. And I guess the difference is I'm not scared anymore.
I love that.
I used to be scared, even after I moved to France. I used to say, God, even in San Jose, I would feel like, God, what if I run into him? What if I this, or what if he knows where I'm at? What am I going to do? Like, I would be fearful. I had fear engraved in me.
Oh, of course.
I only bumped into him once, and I remember I turned around and walked out, and not realizing that I was the one with the restraining order. He had to leave.
Yeah,
but
old habits die hard.
I didn't have the guts.
Yeah.
I didn't have the guts to walk in. I remember turning around and looking at my friend and going, we need to go. It was like, we got to go. And then she was like, what's wrong? And she goes, and then so yeah, it clearly now I feel like calm.
So you have the plan that you start to know that, like, I need to be able to be successful. I need to stand on my own 2 feet. I need to support myself.
Yeah.
Did that kind of start to give you some more confidence and power and kind of change the dynamic at all, or make it worse? Or like, what was that like?
He never was supportive, you know, but he was always willing to be the badass in a way. Like he would, like if I was to say someone's screwing with me, he was ready to go, like go time. But he wasn't supportive.
Did you kind of like that when he did that? Like, it was kind of like, oh, that's my man. A little bit like glimmers of that.
You know, you feel protected.
Right.
You know, you feel protected. And that always feels good as a woman to feel like, oh, I feel protected.
Yeah.
But there was clearly something wrong because I wasn't allowed to even like have a conversation with another man without being pinched while in the conversation.
Wow.
I remember I ran into someone, a high school friend, and my dad was his teacher too. And then I remember looking at him, and clearly I knew who he was. And I was like, Patrick? And he was like, Ofelia? And it was just this moment of like, oh my God, how are you? And I stood back, I go, this is, you know, da-da-da, and we're introducing everybody. And he was like, how's your dad? And there was this whole like conversation. And it was just like, you could just feel this like stern, and I felt the pinch in my back, and I was like, nice to see, okay, bye. Like, it was like, you go into this, like, what am I doing wrong? Like, you know, like everything was wrong. It was just this jealous, overpowering, overpossessive person that I was not even allowed to have male friends or anything.
It's almost like, did you feel like he was always looking for, like he was always looking for something for you to be in trouble about? Like,
I couldn't even go to the grocery store without him calling me. I even would be like, after I left that relationship and I'd go to the grocery store, I'd be in a hurry doing things. Old, like you said, old habits die hard. And I'd be like, why am I rushing? I don't have to rush for anybody right now. The first time I went on, my husband and I were courting each other, or he was courting me.
Your current husband.
My current husband. And we were in San Francisco, and one of my buttons popped off, and I was running around the hotel room like a chicken with my head cut off. And he goes, what's wrong? He's like, and I go, my button fell off. My button fell off. We're going to be late. We're going to be late to dinner. I don't know what to do. And he goes, call the front desk and they can give you the thingy, you know? And I was like, I couldn't even think. And I was like, oh, right. So I grabbed the stuff and I'm rushing. You can clearly see I'm in paranoia, like having an attack almost. And he grabs me by the hand and he goes, here, come here. And he sits me down. He gets on his knees, and I'm starting to like calm myself down, like, calm down, Ofelia, like, what's wrong with you? And he starts sewing the button on my dress because I had no other dress to wear.
Yeah.
Old pattern, old relationship would have been like, what the hell is taking you so long? Why are you not dressed by now? It's time to go. We have dinner plans. There was never a moment to breathe and be like, wow, you look nice.
Yeah.
Or here, let me help you. There was never that. So my husband sits me down and he's like, here. And I literally had to gasp at that moment and go, is this really
Oh
happening?
my gosh.
It was a healing moment for sure, because I was like, had never been treated like that, to where it was like, it's okay. They can wait. Like, we're going to be 10 minutes late. So what?
Yeah.
Like, who cares? And he was sewing the button. And then I was like, what guy knows how to sew a button?
know.
And it was kind of funny. But it was like, his mom is a seamstress. Actually, she made my wedding dress. Yeah, so gorgeous. But he knew that how to sew. So he actually helped design my dress. And so anyway, he's sewing this dress, and he's so calm and so patient. And I'm just like, is this really happening for me right now? And it was an aha moment to take it in and just enjoy it. But then I also realized, wow, I got some work to do. I got to work on how to get rid of the old traumas. And it did, I went to some therapy for it. But going back to therapy, when I say it takes a village, it does. You know, you can't do it alone. And if you don't have the means to get help, there are help lines, you know, for abuse and stuff like that. But, you know, I would suggest to recognize it. And if you want out, you know, it's time to start making a plan.
Yeah. And so what would you recommend someone do in terms of that, like making sure they're financially?
You know, when I became financially successful, it was interesting because I did it for my heart, and I did it so that I could know I could support myself without him. He had a great job. Of course, in California, everything's 50-50, but that doesn't matter. It was for me to know that I could do it on my own.
Right.
And so I did. I focused all that energy into the business, which was healthy and unhealthy, right? I wouldn't sometimes come home until really late at night because I didn't want to come home.
Right. Did you ever sit in your driveway and think, fuck, I don't want to go inside?
Yeah, all the time.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would spend more hours at work if the kids were off of practice. You know, that was, you know, when I'd leave work to go pick them up. Could never depend on him to do anything to help me out when it came to the kids. That was tough. And so then the plan started, and I had my children's support. You know,
what are their ages at this time?
They're 30, 29, and 21.
And so when you left, how old were they?
So when I left, that was another aha moment. My youngest was 14, and I thought I was protecting her. That's the other thing you need to as women, we need to ask ourselves, or men, you know, why are you staying?
Right.
At the time, I thought I was staying and I was protecting the youngest. Come to find out, she knew everything. She knew it all. We had such bad habits as a family that we had phone calls. Your dad's in a mood. Just be prepared. Hey, don't come home right now. So one of them would have to go to a friend's house until the storm was over, because there was abuse there. Don't come home. Okay, got it. And we had very dysfunctional habits as a family. The youngest, we would put earphones on her so she wouldn't hear, and that was. We thought we were protecting her, and come to find out later, she knew everything happening. Yeah. She could hear everything. There was an aha moment when she saw some abuse happening, and I thought, and I sat back and I said, who am I protecting? I'm not protecting anybody. They all know. Now what do you do now? Yeah. So I tried to get my daughter therapy, and my youngest, and that kind of bit me in the butt too. It was interesting because I went and I said, okay, my ex-husband has therapy through work that's covered or whatever. So guess what? She talked about the abuse, and guess who got CPS called on them?
Oh, shoot.
Me. Because I didn't protect them. Because I didn't take them out of the house. Because I did not leave the relationship.
Oh my gosh. I just got the chills.
That's crazy.
That is crazy.
So they reported me to CPS because she saw abuse happening. So CPS then got involved, and they interviewed me and her. And of course, everything's fine. There's no signs of abuse between her and I, and whatever, and everything came out okay. But it's funny how you try to seek help for your children as a woman being abused, thinking you're doing the right thing, and then CPS gets called.
Did they talk to your husband?
Crazy. No, because at the time, I think it was towards the end of the relationship. So that was another thing. So I can see how victims kind of have an uphill battle there. You know, especially when you don't have the means, you know, and that's why I drove a lot of my success was because I was putting a lot of energy into being successful because I wanted to know I'd be okay. And luckily it did. It was a successful business, OSPA. And, you know, and now after the other podcast that we talked about, we have Beauty Bar, which is amazing.
Yeah.
And I know how to do it.
Right.
So that's cool. But going back to the victim mentality, I can see how it's a chase. It's almost like, how do you do this? I had to get a lawyer involved, and that was a pretty penny. You know, that wasn't fun.
Right.
He got a great lawyer.
Oh shoot! So did you guys fight it out all the way through?
You know, we went to court a lot.
Wow.
And it was a divorce, and it was over divorce. Yeah, I mean, there was threats. There was, oh gosh, you want to go back to narcissism? Let's talk about narcissism. He buys me a convertible Mercedes while he has a restraining order, takes my old Mercedes away, puts the new one in the front with a big "I'm sorry" and big roses filled in the car. It was my dream car. And I'm like, he thinks that I'm going to take him back.
Yeah.
After a restraining order, after a divorce papers, after I'm already seeing someone else.
Yeah. Wow.
I'm like, this is crazy.
Right. But that's the patterns that he probably had in some form your entire relationship.
Yes. Yeah.
It's the push-pull.
My first Mercedes was bought after he cheated on me.
Wow.
Yeah. Yeah.
So what did you do with this Mercedes and the roses and all the
You know what? I drove my kids around in it a couple times. I drove it to work a couple times, and I called my lawyer and I go, you know, I'm driving around in a Mercedes, because when I drove out, it was literally like, dude, where's my car?
Oh
my old Mercedes is gone. And I'm like, where's my car? I was going to yoga. It was like 5:30 in the morning. And I'm like, where's my car? I felt like one of those, that character.
Dude, where's my car?
Dude, where's my car? So I'm like, go back in the house, and I'm banging on my son's door, and I go, where's my car? Where'd you put my car? I'm thinking he took it for a joyride. Like, clearly my car is gone. And I wake up the house. Where's my car? Where's my car? My son cuts the corner, and he goes, I think you should go to the side of the house. And I go to the side of the house, and I see this white Mercedes filled with flowers and a card and chocolate. And we're talking about 2 years later. It was really weird.
You know what? That is
narcissism to the max.
Yes, to the max.
To the max. I know. And I remember driving it around and then kind of having this moment like, this is bizarre, but I need a car to drive to work.
Right.
And then I'm like, yeah, like called my lawyer. Can you tell him I want my old car back, please?
But that's the thing. It seems like, oh, wow, that's so kind. That is such an act of control, because he took your other car, Yeah. That is such a power play, very manipulative move still. It's kind of like, it's not just, oh, here's the car, but let me take your car.
Oh, and he had the other copy.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because I remember going out with some girlfriends, and I don't remember what happened, but then the next morning, the car was back. My old car was back.
Wow.
With his wedding ring, with the like hanging from the thing. It was really creepy, and I just remember going like, ugh. And I just had this gut and like you know, this pit in the stomach. You just feel like this is disgusting, and he's not leaving me alone, and he has a restraining order, and this and that, and you just start to go like, God, when is this gonna end? You just like, even now, having left him, having served him divorce papers, having moved on emotionally, even on to another man.
Yeah. Did he know that, the other man?
Oh, yeah.
How hard was...
he didn't know the other man. He knew I was in a relationship.
Yeah, but how did he freak out about that?
Threats.
Oh, wow.
Threatening. Yeah. Threatening that, he was going to find me and, stuff like that. And then I was always very honest with my husband. This is what's happening. He knew from the beginning. Are you sure you want to get into this? I got crazy ex.
Yeah.
And I have 3 kids, and this is going to be a little bit bumpy. And he was invested.
Wow.
Yeah, he was invested. He must have really liked me.
Yeah, you must have done something to this man. So how did you meet him?
Oh, my God. It's so funny. That was a question that came up a lot. So I don't know how much he wants me to share. He said, I want to do my own podcast and give my side of the story.
Well, you're going to have to tell me on Patreon then.
I know, right? Totally. And he is a little bit private. He doesn't even have a Facebook or anything. So all I can say is I had a Dance Moms t-shirt on the night I met him, for sure. I was not turned up at all. But he said when I walked in, he was like, I'm marrying that woman.
Wow.
So that's kind of cute.
That is cute.
And if there was any advice I would say to women that are single and looking, I wasn't really looking, to be quite honest. But, I mean, I was ready but not ready, if you know what I mean. And I would say, and, clearly it's my love story, right? So that'll be fun to share afterwards. But I don't know. I mean, you can't duplicate it.
Right. Yeah.
It's my love story. And if someone's looking for a hot pilot, I would guess you're going to have to hang out at the Lazy Dog Bar. But I don't know.
Yeah. You know what the trick is? The tip is you hang out at if you want to meet a pilot, or men do this, actually, I heard.
What?
That want to hook up with flight attendants, they go hang out at the bars by the airports.
Yeah.
And then they get their little one night stand, like clockwork.
Isn't
men
that
with the flight attendants. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, yeah.
So if you want to meet a hot pilot, I'm not saying I know I'm not saying that her current husband is a hot pilot, but I'm just saying if you want to meet one.
He is a hot pilot.
Oh my goodness! But what a fairy tale
it was
for you. After everything that you went through.
Yeah, it was a fun adventure for sure. The courting process was really fun.
Yeah, like even watching on social media, I saw like the shift in your content and everything, and it felt like, wow, she's living like a fairy tale.
Yeah, it does feel that way sometimes. You're like, wow, the best of both worlds. Like, I had the business, and then I had, I was doing segments on TV and giving beauty advice, and then you meet the hot French pilot, and there was this moment where I did dig deep, and I go, people were not, I wouldn't say judgy, but maybe they were judgmental. I don't know. There was the whole feeling like, God, skin me and wear me. Why don't you? Some girls were just like, where did you meet him? Where did it? Like they wanted to know. But there was this moment where I had to go, if they only knew what I've been through.
Right.
If they only knew what I've been through, they would be really happy for me to know that I've moved on and found someone that is kind and caring and all of the things that were missing from my first relationship, for sure.
Right.
Patient in some ways, and and hey, no marriage is perfect.
No.
I'm not putting that out there because and we had to go through COVID as newlyweds, so that was challenging.
Yeah.
And then my addiction, and then it was there was another set of problems.
Right.
But through with this marriage, but there, there's no blame game, nothing of that. It's just, it was a fairy tale, the way we met, the way we courted each other, the process leading up to marriage. It was beautiful. Yeah.
Right. And I'm sure it still gives you like those butterfly feelings to think of that process, especially after everything that you went through.
It was, there was these moments, and he gave it at our at our wedding was, our third date was really fun because I turned up that night. I was like, you know what? Now I'm going to turn up. Okay. Let him really see what this can do. And I put on this beautiful black dress and it was a really pretty night that night. And he says, there's a piano upstairs. And I'm like, oh, you play piano? And it's my favorite instrument. And I go, oh, that's really cool. You know, he goes, yeah, there's a piano. I went around looking at the hotel earlier and there's a grand piano upstairs. And I said, nice. So we go upstairs and I'll keep it short. And he says, what would you like to hear? And he's warming up. And I'm like, oh my God, he's so like he thinks I'm just gonna name off a song and he's gonna know it.
Oh
like
my goodness.
Whatever. Like I was just like, let me show him. So I'm like, the Moonlight Sonata. And he's like, and he just stared at me for a little second and I'm like, okay, whatever. And then he starts playing it.
Oh my gosh.
And then I was like, okay, he's pretty good.
Yeah.
we actually had two pianos at one point, one in San Jose and one where we live in France. And so I sing and he plays a piano. I know we did it at our wedding too. It's really cute.
Talk about fairy tale. I love that. Now I have to ask you, during the dark moments.
Yes.
Did you find yourself fantasizing at all or thinking about like what life could be and fantasizing about having a fairy tale someday? Did you picture that for yourself?
I knew in the bottom of my heart and the gut feeling that there was something better. I just always knew. I remember asking my ex-husband, is this as good as it gets? Because I was clearly unhappy.
Right.
And he said, yeah, what else do you want? What else do you want?
Yeah.
And I was like, this can't be it. Like, this can't be it.
But I think that's what saved you is that mentality. And that's what I actually tell women, like, even if you're in your darkest days and it feels like there's nothing else out there, you have to believe that there is.
Yeah.
Because that's what will drive you to find it.
Yeah, absolutely. You have to, we can get into whether it's manifestation. Some would call on the universe. I like to think of it as believing that there's something better. The desires of your heart, what are they? Ask yourself that question.
Yeah.
I want a peaceful, loving, kind relationship that understands me. I used to say, I still say feisty Latina, right? Because I am. I know that about myself. And I go, whoever comes along is going to have to know how to enjoy that and not be annoyed with it because it can be quite annoying.
Yeah.
To some, my kids.
Yeah, well, of course.
But, some people I might be a little too much for them, and I'm not going to be everyone's cup of tea. That's okay. But I'm definitely a good friend and all of those things. What were we talking about?
Well, just like believing that you deserve more. You know what I mean? You have to believe it.
And, goes back to, I started to get into vision board stuff and vision board parties. Yeah. And I would have those at my old house and I would throw yearly vision board parties and they started to get bigger and bigger. And we would pray before them that we would be enlightened by what sometimes you don't even know what it is you want.
So true.
Sometimes you don't even think that what you are manifesting or believing for, those gifts and that dream can be bigger than what you thought for yourself. I really believe that.
I do too.
I would think that I wanted, and I'm going to sound so shallow right now. I would think as long as he's supportive and good looking. I wanted good looking, supportive and this and that. And then I get my husband, I'm like, okay, wow, okay, that's pretty cool. And then there's, another dream where, okay, vision boards. Let's talk about vision boards real quick. My daughter looks at me and she goes, why do you have all these men that are dressed in suits
on your vision board?
I'm like, I don't know. I swear I did not know. It was really funny.
And so you manifested your man in a suit.
He loves wearing suits.
Oh, that's so funny.
I love getting dressed up. Like, I love the feeling of like, I get to put on a pretty dress today and do my hair and makeup.
Yeah.
And we do it a lot together.
Aww.
And he loves wearing a suit. So when we go out, it's like we get really dressed up and people will be like, wow, you guys look really nice. And we're like, yeah, we're just going out to a nice dinner. But we like dressing up. Yeah. And so that's really fun. It's like,
isn't that cool. Amazing? And you know what I think is important that you said is to find someone that's supportive of who you are. I think that's a very important message because you have to find someone that loves you for who you authentically are in your good moments, your bad moments, because there's nothing worse than feeling like you need to hide or change things about yourself, and that never ends well.
Yeah, when you are pretending to be something else, that's a huge red flag.
Yeah.
Not only to, let's say, oh, okay. Well, one thing is definitely don't want to pretend to be someone you're courting.
Right.
That's scary.
Right.
That's a narcissist.
Yeah.
Actually.
Yeah.
Someone who pretends to be something that you want them to be.
Exactly.
And they are pretending to be that. And then they know they're giving you what you want. Mm-hmm. And then
that's how they get you.
That's how they get you. And then there's a shift.
Yes.
That's kind of scary. Mm-hmm. That can be behavior and disorder. So there's those two.
Yeah. It's almost like it's like someone who saw your vision board.
Right.
You know what I mean? And so then they become it. That's like a classic. It happens a lot with like reality stars.
Yeah.
Where they'll have like these crazy people watch the show and say like, oh, she says this, she says that, and then they become that person, and then they enter their life and become the dream person. They're a narcissist.
Scary, right? Yeah, super scary. I definitely think that the higher you get in life, right, you too. I mean, you know, the stalkers and the guys that reach out and you're just like, okay, now I got to block this idiot, right?
Yeah.
You know, I'm sure you've had that, but same thing with friendships. Are they opportunists? Things like that. People who come around that just want a piece of your pie.
Don't you feel like now, having experienced what you've been through, that you're hypersensitive to whether someone is a narcissist or not, or if someone shows narcissistic tendencies, like you're
all the time.
Oh, yeah.
All the time. It's almost too much sometimes.
Yeah.
You know, I'll be like, are they narcissistic?
Oh my gosh, I totally do that.
And then I'm like, I had to apologize to a friend the other day because we were doing something and hey, there is nothing wrong with that. I'm sorry. Can I just say that? I want to make that message very clear. I love taking inventory of myself every day and saying, did I do anything wrong to anyone today? You know, that was a really good tool that I learned through some of my step work in getting to become a better person, is knowing that there's no shame in saying I'm sorry, you know. And I did that to someone the other day. I said, oh, we all have narcissistic behavior. I'm like, okay, wait, hold on, Ofelia, not everybody's a narcissist, because another friend said she's in a narcissistic marriage and she wants out, and I'm like, oh man, you've been dealing with this for 7 years. That's a long time. She goes, I'm done, Ofelia. I'm so done. And she's like, he's showing all the signs of narcissism. I need to get out. And she goes, I've been researching a lot. I said, have at it, girlfriend. Let's talk about it. So we start talking. She's getting a facial. And I go, and she goes, do you know that 1 out of 5 people are narcissists? And I'm like, oh, really? She goes, that's really high. And I'm like, in my head, I swear to you, I thought it was higher.
Wow.
Because I think narcissism runs really high.
I think that there's a lot of people in this day and age with narcissistic tendencies, and it comes as a result of like all of this social media stuff. And, I think I joked with you last time we were here where I asked my kids, after having dealt with my dad being a narcissist, true narcissistic disorder, among probably some other mental disorders, but he... I asked my kids, like, I was raised by a narcissist, so I'm not a narcissist, am I? And they're like, no, Mom, you're not a narcissist. But I got scared for a minute.
No, I totally get that. I can show behaviors. Again, it can be misleading, right?
Right.
there's the whole like, and I spoke about this in the last podcast, be proud of who you are, love yourself better, all of those things, right? If you're brag about yourself, be proud of your accomplishments.
Right.
And so there is that fine line when you are a pretty person. You could be called vain. You could be called, you know, she's showing off.
Yeah.
Or this or that. You know, people are going to talk about you whether they like you or not. So you have to be true to yourself.
Right.
I think that's important. And going back to what we were talking about, the behaviors, we can, I think, identify them and want to become better women.
Right.
And bend. That's the thing. Are we bendable? Because what do they say about a tree? A tree is going to blow with the wind, right? So if the tree wants to go this way or that way, and we have the power and the choice to bend. And so if somebody's going to bring something to my attention and then I realize, you know, I don't like that about myself.
Right.
I think I need to work on that. I'm bending.
Yeah.
You know, I'm learning how to bend and become a better person. I don't want to be, another narcissist is not willing to bend or admit they're wrong.
No accountability.
No accountability. No I'm sorry's. Never right. One-uppers, I call them.
Yes.
Always needing to be also stealing the spotlight, not and letting someone have that moment.
Absolutely. Good and bad ones.
Good and bad ones.
Like when you're sick, they're sicker. You know, when it's like, come on, it's so true.
You know, and so this was a topic for a girlfriend and I, and my daughter. We were talking about the mother-daughter thing, or talking to our kids about it. My daughter brought it to my attention. She goes, "Mom, you sound like Grandpa." My dad had narcissistic behavior, one-upper all the time. I'm like, can you let me have my moment, Dad?
Yeah.
Like, stop. Like, and it was like, and we would joke around about it as he got older because he started to become the one-upper all the time.
That's so funny.
And so then we'd be like, one-upper, and we'd like yell it in between the kids, and he wouldn't even catch on. It was so funny. And so, my daughter said it to me one time. Somebody was complimenting her beautiful curly hair, and she goes, this girl goes, "You have the most beautiful hair." And I go, "Oh my gosh, she got my hair. I have curly hair."
So you did a one-upper.
I totally did. And then Brianna just looks at me and she's like, and she goes, "Wow, Mom, way to steal my compliment."
Oh, that's so funny.
And I'm like, she goes, "You sound like Grandpa." And I was like,
uh-oh.
Wait,
yeah,
I don't want to be the one-upper. And then I'm like, and then I learned that I have a tendency to do that, and I'm not doing it. I swear I wasn't doing it intentionally.
I think I might have that tendency sometimes as well. But you know what it is? But the fact that we can say that right there is a win. Because a true narcissist would absolutely, they would never admit that.
It's almost like the fire with fire.
Yeah.
And seeing it from a place of, well, I didn't do that. I don't do that.
Yeah.
You know, or I'm just joking.
Yeah.
You know, or there's those behaviors that I think are red flags, you know, to be careful and recognize them. But like we were saying earlier, I'm on guard a lot. You know, even like
it's like that's like PTSD. It is what it is.
Yeah.
It's PTSD because I incorrectly probably label more people than I should.
Me too.
A narcissist.
I take the blame. But again, I don't have a problem saying I'm sorry. You know, I said, you know, I shouldn't have said that. You know, to you, that was wrong of me. You know, please don't take it personal.
Right.
It's me working on me, and I am talking about narcissism this week on a podcast, and I have a tendency to think everyone's narcissistic.
I know. I can totally relate. Oh my goodness. So, okay, you guys. So if there is something that you can learn from this episode, I hope that you got from it that no matter how dark the days and how impossible things feel, if you believe that there's something better out there for you, then there is.
Absolutely. Believe it. You have to believe it. And once you start believing it, you can start planning and making the move.
Build your team.
Build a team. Build
a village.
The village is important, whether it's your pastor, your friends. You know, I want out. How can you help me? And don't be afraid to ask for help. No one knows how to help you unless you ask for help. You know, I had a friend who her mother died. I'm sorry, her sister passed away. And I've always known her to be this strong woman. And come to find out, years later, she said, I was really hurt by you, Ofelia. You didn't come to help me much during that time.
Wow.
And I was like, you never asked me. I didn't know.
Yeah.
And I was like, I'm so sorry. I felt really bad because I didn't have the sensitivity to recognize that
it's hard in that situation.
It is hard. And so what I'm telling people is you need to ask.
Yeah.
You know, sometimes people don't know.
Yeah.
And
they think they're helping you by giving you your space.
Yeah, absolutely. And I was one of those people that knew how to hide it really good. And so if you are hiding it, and now is your time to create your village, you need to ask. Yeah. And don't be afraid or ashamed. You know, I would say there's a lot of shame in this too, because now you're not exploiting, you know, you're exposing the truth. Yeah. And that is something that I told my husband and people that I'm not afraid to expose the truth. You know, there are some things that are meant to stay quiet because you want to protect your family or whatever. You know, you don't want to apologize for something that may hurt somebody or, you know, there's always going to be that fine line. But when you need to ask for help, it's time and pray, you know, and sometimes just manifest and ask. Believe in that the right people will show up at the right time. Yeah. It's like that lifeline that keeps coming sometimes. And if you
just gotta grab it,
you know, don't ignore those lifelines. I would say sometimes they show up and we choose to turn the cheek. And then you look back and you go, that was supposed to be help. Right. And I didn't grab it. Yeah. Or sometimes something happens and you go, God, I should have. I knew that was going to happen. And then you go, I should have listened to that inner voice. That inner voice is actually quite loud.
It is.
And we choose to not listen. And I didn't listen for years. Yeah. You know, I had people trying to help me, but I would ignore it because I thought it would get better. But when I finally chose to make the change happened. Yeah. There was a huge aha moment for me. I remember giving a facial to this, this girl comes in and she wants her eyebrows tattooed by me. And she comes in with a couple $100 and I charge like, you know, 500 and something. And she says, I want my cousin's eyebrows. You just did her. And she's bargaining with me like I'm at the flea market, right? And I'm like, this is in Spanish. Yeah. And I go, you know, I'm not the flea market. We don't negotiate like that. And something, my inner gut is telling me that I need to talk to this woman. And I'm like, what's your story? Like, what's your deal? Yeah. You know? And she goes, my husband is cheating on me. We're going through a separation and I only have $200 because I came to America from Peru and I'm cleaning houses and all I have is $200 and I just want to look pretty like my cousin and that's all I have. And I'm like, I don't know what happened, but my heart went out to her because I was literally going through the separation at that time. And I'm like, okay, lay down. And I start to, I'm like, now I'm numbing her, right? Yeah. And we're talking and she's opening up to me and all she wanted was to look pretty, which tugged at my heart. For sure. And I'm like, what's your deal? You know, so now we're talking and she's telling me her situation. She's from Peru. She has no car. You know, hold on, let me backpedal. She says to me, you're separated? And I go, yeah, I'm separated from my husband right now, and I'm trying to figure out how to leave him. And she goes, I don't understand. This is all in Spanish. I don't understand. Isn't this your business? I go, yeah. She goes, do you have a car? I go, everybody has a car in California. And she goes, but you have children and they love you? And I go, yeah. Yeah. And then she goes, and you're beautiful? And I go, thank you. And she goes, what the F are you doing? Yeah. And I went, wow. Uh-huh. And I go, why do you say that? She goes, I have nothing. I'm from Peru. He put my car in his sister's name, my house in his sister's name. Oh, that was the other thing. She said, you have a house? And I go, well, we're gonna have to split it. And then she goes, I have nothing. I am working on $200 a week with my cousin to escape. I'm only allowed here for 3 months, and I have to go back to fight. And here I am blessing her with $200 tattoo that was going to make her happy. And I thought in that moment, wow, my stuff could be a lot worse, couldn't it?
Yeah.
And it was a huge aha moment for me to go, I do kind of have it all. I have a house, I have a car, I have money, I have, and I suppose I have my wits and my beauty.
Because you put together that plan, though. You know what I mean?
Probably.
You put that plan of action into place because years before you started the business and all of that, you were in a much more vulnerable position.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely.
You set that self up for you, but you still didn't realize, like, I have all of this that I created to do this.
Yeah.
Now I got to do it.
And now she took that moment and made me realize you're in a good position, woman.
Yeah. Like, fucking do it.
Do it already. And then I was like, it's time to do it.
Yeah.
Yeah, she was a big part of my turning point.
I feel like there always has to be something.
There's always
a moment.
There's always that, Oprah used to call them the aha moments. And that's what I grab is there's that moment where you go, wow, take it.
Right.
Take it.
Yeah.
Like, grab a hold of it with the reins and go for it. And sometimes it's putting one foot in front of the other.
Yeah.
Again, it's like with the business, I talked about this last time, was knowing that if you move forward, if it's not the road you're supposed to be down, God will shut it, or it'll shut on you. And then you're like, and so sometimes they say, the door will open.
Right.
Some of us think you got to break that damn mirror and crawl through it if you
make
have
a
to.
door.
Make a door.
Make a door out of the brick wall over there. Oh, my goodness.
Yeah.
Well, geez. You guys, I have some more questions that I'm going to ask Ofelia over on Patreon. But before we head over to Patreon, tell everyone where they can find you, like on social media. Where's your business? Give us all the lowdown.
Yeah, I mean, I am branding, so that's fun. Beauty Bar is in Los Gatos. That's my current spot, and we're looking to franchise soon. And my personal page, as I grow, is Ofifi.
I love that.
Yeah, and so I do live part-time in France and part-time here. Yeah, so
all right,
follow
you guys.
me, throw me questions.
Yeah, you guys can hit her up
help.
because she's obviously been through a lot. And I know many of you are in this situation right now. And she's happy to help you guys in any way, answer any questions you have. And then if you guys want to hear a little bit more, head over to Patreon because we're going to talk a little bit more. I have some questions.
Let's do it.